Welcome back to another episode of the Wolverine.com podcast. Clayton Sayfie here with Anthony Broome, and then we're also with Chris Balas, the biggest St. Peter's fan that I've ever met. He's also live from the Riverwalk in San Antonio.
Class of '92, Clayton.
Class of '92. We were rooting for St. Peter's back in Indy last weekend. So much so that we were getting congratulated by some Kentucky fans, the ones that were actually nice enough to not just file right out and shove past you. And Chris, of course, is class of '92, not actually, but what an unbelievable tournament so far. It's been fun, obviously, covering this Michigan team into the second weekend for a fifth straight tournament, sixth straight year that there's been a tournament Michigan's been in. So it's been a long time since Michigan has been eliminated, with the likes of the Michigan States of the world and Wisconsins of the world that are watching from their cribs, as Hunter Dickinson said. But this team's obviously seems like they're having a lot of fun. Chris, we'll just throw it to you first to just get your vibe from San Antonio. As we're recording this, about 6 hours from tip. Obviously, people up here in the state can feel it. What are you feeling down there?
Yeah, I feel a lot of sunshine. And first things I got to do, Clay, is explain this class of '92 thing, right? So I went and bought the St. Peter's shirt, Anthony, because we were there, and they have the 4 shirts, or the shirts of the 8 teams that were there, and they hadn't sold like more than 2 St. Peter's shirts. The guy told me when we went up there. Clay and I had a couple beers in us, watching that second game after we got all our work.
It was St. Patty's Day. I mean, what are we doing?
It was St. Patrick's Day, right? It's St. Peter's, St. Patrick's, close enough. And there were 80% Kentucky fans there, man. And you should have seen them, Anthony. It was nuts. These people are crazy. So you couldn't help but root for St. Peter's. So I will go get the shirt, and and I put it on. And some lady from Florida Gulf Coast, she goes, "Oh, congratulations," this nice older lady. And she goes, "We know exactly how you feel." And we didn't want to let her down. So Clay's like, "Yeah, man, I feel so good for him. Class of '92 here for St. Pete's, And of course, I'm a Michigan grad, but so we had to play along for a little while. I was like, "Hey, thank you so much," and we're really happy. And of course, John Mahoney's son, John Mahoney, being a former Michigan assistant, played for Florida Gulf Coast. So I started talking about that a little bit. And anyway, long story short, we basically lied to a little old lady. So, but it is what it is, and rooting for St. Peter's, and love the dude with the hair and the little stash, and rooting for a nice run for them. But yeah, but as far as Michigan goes, everybody talks about house money, and it's true, but this is a winnable game. I actually sat next to Eli Brooks' parents on the plane. It was crazy. No, I did not plan it. No, I'm not a stalker. I just happened to sit down, and they had their masks on. And I've talked to James Brooks, Eli's dad, who was his coach many times over the years, at least a handful of times, and talked to him a lot during the recruiting process. And what a great family. His parents are incredible. So that first hour of the flight, you're like, all of a sudden you look up and you're halfway there. But they know Villanova well, and without giving away any secrets, we feel solid about this matchup. And Villanova could have had Eli Brooks. They were that close. The campus was the difference. And I like Eli to have a big game tonight. I think Villanova is going to be too tough for them guys. They're just a really good basketball team, well-rounded. I think just a little bit better defensively than Michigan. But if Hunter Dickinson has a huge game and Michigan makes some shots, maybe we're here watching another game on Saturday.
Yeah, Anthony, how are you feeling from the HQ up here with me in the state of Michigan?
Yeah, I manned the fort. No pun intended. Last week, you guys went to Indianapolis, and I stayed back, took care of some spring football stuff, football pro day. But I think the vibe coming out of last weekend is I will hesitate to say that they are playing with house money, because Michigan as a program expects to be here. But, to come out of that regular season and that first game of the Big Ten tournament and have a 17-14 record, and I've said several times, that team has been like they are what their record says they were. And to get to the tournament and just kind of snap back to what that postseason pedigree has been, it does kind of reshape what this season looks like. It's impossible to know what the ramifications are so far, because there's going to be roster attrition. There'll be guys that need to make NBA decisions. Are they staying? Are they going? Things like that. But, if you can find a way, and Villanova is going to be incredibly tough. I mean, there's this Coach K love tour going on right now because he's on his way out the door. I think Jay Wright is the best coach in college basketball. So they're going to be ready to go. They have senior guards just like Michigan has senior guards. It's going to be an experienced kind of matchup of teams with players that have both been in these big game situations. I'm fascinated to see how it goes and to see whenever this run ends, whether it's Thursday night, whether it's Saturday night, whether it's next weekend in New Orleans, how it shapes what this next group is. Because I think what you have right now is a really nice hybrid of guys that are kind of putting a stamp on their legacies on the way out the door and guys who are just getting started.
Yeah. And the just getting started thing is really important for this program because look at Eli Brooks, who didn't play a lot in that 2018 run when he was a freshman, but it really, and he played in, I think, 3 or 4 of those games, kind of towards the end, 4 minutes. I think he had 6 minutes maybe in the national title game. But now you're looking at a guy who's never not made the Sweet 16. Part of the reason why he came back is to, make another run, fans in the crowd, things like that, and a normal season again for once. And here he is leading a group of young players. Half the roster is newcomers. 7 out of the 14 scholarship guys were not on the team last year. Now they're getting that taste of it because of another fantastic Eli Brooks performance in the round of 32. He had 21 against LSU last year, 23 on Saturday night against Tennessee. But yeah, absolutely. And when we talk about keys to this game, I think it's going to be tough too. I do have Villanova winning this game by 4 points. I could see Villanova winning by more than that, though, based on the way they play. Michigan's going to have to really focus on the details, take care of the ball. There's going to be open shots. Villanova allows a lot of 3-point attempts because they're going to have to double team the post. And against Hunter Dickinson and Moussa Diabate, nobody on their roster in the rotation over 6'8". So there's opportunity there, but I think you trust Villanova's shot making a little bit better than Michigan's. But it's going to be guys like Caleb Houston that are going to have to step up. Devontae Jones, everybody's counting him out, and there's people saying, oh, they're better with Frankie anyway. Well, yeah, there you go. And Devontae, I think he's going to get some open 3-point shots too, and I think he can knock them down and remind some people, why he was such a big piece of this team, especially in the second half of the season. But what are you guys looking at in terms of, the keys to coming out with this one?
I think he's a better matchup against these guards than he was Tennessee, for example. Those guys got cards with quickness. We saw it. North Carolina gave him fits earlier in the year. I think Tennessee would have continued to give him fits if he had stayed in that game. So I think this is a better matchup for him. You're right about the 3 ball. The one thing that Michigan has to do defensively, guys, that they haven't done well is stay on their feet defensively against a team that is going to ball fake you to death and try to get you in foul trouble. That's my big concern here is that Moussa Diabate is going to leave his feet, 4 times and pick up 3 fouls or something like that, get in early foul trouble. This could be a game where we see Brandon Johns, and I know a lot of people have been critical of him. He did, guys, provide some big minutes in last year's NCAA tournament, and he's capable. It's all here. It really is. He's got the physical skills, and I understand people saying, well, if it hasn't happened yet, it's not going to happen. But he's shown it before, so he's got that ability, and it's one game. He doesn't have to do it for 10 games in a row. He's got to do it for one game. And I hope the best for him because he's a great guy and a great kid, and he's got the ability. So, the same thing with the guards. Frankie Collins, if he's in there, can't leave your feet. Devontae Jones can't leave your feet. That needs to be a point of emphasis. I would have put, 50-pound ankle weights on these guys when they were defending in practice and just say, don't leave your feet. Make them make the tough shots over you, and you'll be okay. So, but Caleb Houston, I'm waiting for him to break out. I wrote a column before last week's game, and he didn't score a point, and I thought, okay, is this a game where an outlier, maybe I just, maybe it's the Wolverine.com cover jinx or something like that. Yeah. But he's capable too. And everybody's like, oh, he hasn't done anything all year. Okay. 2 things. He shot 47% in Chrysler Arena, 46.5 or whatever it was. Right. And so he can make shots. Granted, this is not Chrysler, but he went, I think 5 for 7 at Iowa. He's had some games. We know the kid can shoot. And again, a lot of it's up here, trusting yourself and having that confidence. And when he makes 1 or 2, then he has that confidence. So I would love to see that from him. And of course, again, the last time I wished that upon somebody was Duncan Robinson before the Villanova national championship game. I said, this kid needs to be the difference. And He got in early foul trouble and didn't contribute. So here's hoping, though, because I think he can be an X factor in a game like this. I would love to see it. I think Villanova is extremely disciplined. On defense, you've got to, they're going to work the shot clock, guys. It's going to be one of those, where you're just sitting there and waiting for them to do something, and then they're going to take advantage of an opportunity at the end of the shot clock. But this is a winnable game, and I'd love to see them in the Elite Eight once again. And either way, we're going to enjoy it down here, fellas.
Real quick, I think this could also be a Terrence Williams game, too, in addition to Brandon Johns. We saw what that lineup did with him at the 4 last game down the stretch. He comes in when they're down 6. They end up outscoring them by, whatever it was. They end up winning by 8 points there in the last 7 minutes. Terrence Williams, looking up this stat today, in wins, Terrence Williams is shooting over 52% from 3. In losses, 6.7%, which is just insane. So he affects winning. And going back to Caleb Houston, the stat on him, Michigan 10-1 when he scores 13 or more. So he's obviously a huge key to victory. And you mentioned it, them spreading the floor as well. I think Terrence could help with that when he's in. Hunter Dickinson, he's just got to do enough, man, and just get a hand, get that long arm out there on some of these guys because they run a lot of pick and pop. Jermaine Samuels for them is kind of that pick and pop guy at like 6'7", and Hunter's going to have to guard that. It's a huge challenge, but I would take my chances if I'm Michigan, run the other guys off the line like Colin Gillespie, who almost makes 3 threes a game, which is top 20 in the country. Take my chances with some of those bigger guys shooting them with maybe a little more space than letting the other guys. We saw Michigan do a decent job for most of that game against Tennessee, running some of those guards off the line like Vescovi. So it's going to be key. And, hey, you just need to get some misses too. I know Villanova, like, who says they're going to be perfect either? So you got to just get a couple missed shots, take your chances, and I think Michigan will be right in it.
AB?
Yeah, I'm with all that. And the one thing I'll say about Caleb is that, every time throughout the year where people have said, oh, this guy's giving you nothing, you need to get him out of the starting lineup, water has typically found its level pretty violently with him. And then he comes out and scores 16, 17, 20 points in a game. And, I can't say that would be an outlier because we've seen him do it this year. But if that guy shows up in any of these games that they play in this weekend, they got to get this one first. But that guy shows up on Thursday night, Michigan's going to be very tough to beat. And because I think that'll be good news for Hunter Dickinson as well. So.
Yeah, AB, by the way, you're awfully happy with that tail wagging in the back there. So
yeah, I love this time of year. It's a wonderful time.
That's classic.
He's got a great dog. Yeah, got to meet him the other day. Harley.
And just got her groomed. So
that's right.
That's right.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I think I called Colin Gillespie Billy Gillespie in an article. Really sorry about that. And you don't want to make that mistake. But man, that just goes to show you how many of these I've covered, and it's just like, and how long we've been covering college basketball. And it's like, come on, man. I'd rather have Billy Gillespie out there, but I think that's an interesting subplot too, that Eli Brooks, turns down Villanova. And in talking to his parents, his mother said she was surprised he didn't go there. He went to Ann Arbor and he found out that he loved the campus in Ann Arbor. And then, so as a consolation prize, Villanova gets Colin Gillespie, and those guys have played together against each other a lot. So they are very familiar with each other, two Pennsylvania kids. And I love it. I love that subplot, and I really have a lot of respect for that Villanova program. And then talking to guys like John Beilein, he does too, obviously. And when you talk about culture, the culture that John Beilein built and that Juwan Howard has continued is very similar to that. And a lot of it is doing the right thing on and off the court, and that's you see recruiting great kids. Phil Martelli, Michigan's associate head coach, has said it so many times, guys, what a great group of kids this is. He was almost a little worried that they were too quiet at times, the freshman class, and is there going to be one of those ballers in there, one of those guys with swag? But you can see it when Caleb Houston hits a couple shots, and you can see it with Frankie Collins. So they've got some guys there, and I see Anthony's happy again and ready to chime in here.
That's right.
I got nothing there. I don't know. Doug was freshly bathed. That might be a good time to sneak in the ad read here from our sponsor.
Yeah. Hey, it's a decent pivot, even though it's for human beings. But March Madness is here. Not everyone can have a perfect bracket, but you can have the perfect set of balls this tournament season with the sponsor of today's show, Manscaped, our favorite. The leaders in below-the-waist grooming have just launched their ultra-premium collection to give you the total championship hygiene routine. After sweating out the games, make sure you lather up head to toe with this all-in-one skin and hair kit to have your body and balls smelling Final Four fresh. Join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com. Use the promo code 20GOBLUE for 20% off and free shipping. That's 20GOBLUE for 20% off and free shipping. This is a Cinderella story you're not going to want to miss. They just sent us another package. Man, as the clock winds down in March, be clutch and avoid the upset with Manscaped Ultra Premium Collection to keep everything under control. It's as reliable as, some of the most reliable guys out there, like an Eli Brooks or Jay Wright coaching in the tournament. So get your Manscaped.
Billy
right now.
Gillespie from the free throw line.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, Colin.
Yeah. God, he is one of
Who's to say you can't use the lawnmower 4.0 on your dog if you don't want to?
It's true.
I'm not going there.
No, we're done. All right. Let's talk a little football, fellas.
Yeah, let's do it. So Anthony and I were at the press conferences this week. Chris, obviously, you always have your ear to the ground, and then including when you're in San Antonio there. But we got to talk to a lot of defensive guys this week, and I know last week was Matt Weiss and Sharon Moore. We got to talk to Jesse Minter and Steve Klinkscale, who, first of all, I'll just say this about Minter. So everybody, every player that was asked, they're saying, oh, he's just like Mike McDonald. His scheme's the same. He's very similar too. And I'm like, how can this guy be like the same as Mike McDonald? And then he gets up there, and the way he's talking, I was like, this might as well be Mike McDonald. And then Klink, this is my line about Klink, is if Steve Klinkscale doesn't know what he's talking about, nobody does. So it was some great stuff, but they're going to give it to you honest, especially Klink, who said he's challenged some guys this spring. This is his first spring here as well. Remember, he got hired last summer after Mo Linguist left. So they're getting after some of these guys, but you see some leaders stepping up. Mozzie Smith, Mike Morris, everybody has said he's become a really vocal leader. Jamon Green as well apparently has taken a huge step in the leadership role on the defensive side, which is huge. You can start to kind of feel this thing to come together, and it's crazy that it's only 9 days until the spring game. But throw it to you, Chris. Just anything you've been thinking about, reading about, hearing about, this week on spring ball.
Yeah, I'm going to be sad to miss the spring game while I cover the Final Four.
That's
number
right.
one. That's what first comes to mind, covering Michigan in the Final Four. But number two, listening to that, Minter, I thought, the whole time when they were looking for a defensive coordinator, I said, this guy, everybody's talking about Larry Foote, and I said, that doesn't make any sense, and people can be mad about it, but what makes the most sense is continuity. And Minter and McDonald worked together. They know the defense. They talk about defense together. They're friends. I thought that would be the perfect fit at the right time. And I think that's going to prove to be the case, because you don't want to be installing a new defense here and doing that every year. No, you can use the same terminology. As somebody once said, I don't know if it was Jim Harbaugh or somebody, they said it makes a lot more sense to teach one guy new terminology than the 22 or 44 or whoever many are going to play on defense, all these guys and the new coaches and everything else too. So, and Minter was pretty familiar with it, so there might be a few changes here and there, fellows, but I think it was a great hire. Number two, I think there are going to be more playmakers than people expect. I think Mike Morris, Anthony, and I both, I think, agreed in our chat that Mike Morris might come across as the most improved guy on the team this spring. He's one of them. They call him a freak. You look at his body. I remember somebody telling me last year he passes the look test getting off the bus.
Like Chase Young, yeah.
Exactly. And maybe not as ripped, but you can see what they were talking about, right? This guy is huge, and the way he plays, love the way he plays. I love the swagger. I love Junior Colson and what they plan on doing with him. From what we've heard, they're going to be probably bringing him from some different areas at times. Not obviously a different position than Dax Hill, but he's one of those guys who has the athleticism where you can do a number of different things with him, AB and Clay. And I like that. So, and I think on the back end, they're stronger than they thought they were going to be because of guys like Mike Sainristil still stepping up. Javon Green's played a lot of football here. Will Johnson's going to be a star here. I tweeted that. I stand by that. Everything we've heard, this kid's a freak athlete. And he's going to make an impact from day one. So that's what excites me. I think the offense is going to be great. Cade McNamara is going to be the number one guy coming out of spring. J.J. McCarthy not throwing, and I think he will get the first snaps. We'll talk about that more in our Inside the Fort tomorrow. But I love the leadership on this team. It seems like they got the culture back, guys that they lost in 2020. and that should be exciting to Michigan fans.
Yeah, I mean, everything that we've heard so far is that Mike Sainristil has kind of been a revelation there, playing the nickel and dime spot for them in that defense. That's huge news because you're super young there and super inexperienced. So for that guy, and he's still learning. Like, it's not a plug and play. Okay, all of a sudden this guy's your replacement for Dax Hill at the nickel. He's still learning and still figuring stuff out. But spring football is when you get those fundamental work in, and you work out the finer details, and then in fall camp, that's where you say, all right, go unleash. It's time to get ready for the season. So I like what we've heard there. I think like I said, we talked to Clinkscale and Minter this week. Clinkscale was the guy kind of tackled in doing the writing stuff from it. They're super excited about what they have. I think you're going to see those guys. We've talked about this before. How do you replace, or how do you offset, I should say, losing the 25 sacks that you do from your defense? Well, your defensive backs have to hold up a little more in coverage, and you have to be a little more exotic and different in the looks that you bring. And it seems like they're a little more open to bring in blitzes from the second and third levels. Defensive backs have been blitzing way more in spring football. Good things to say about Will Johnson, good things to say about DJ Turner, who sounds like he got off to a little bit of a slow start, but then has picked it up as of late and is, the unquestioned kind of number one there. Jamon Green, a guy who was benched last year, is having a good spring. So, really when we come into this, and this goes back to something I said a couple podcasts ago, like when you really sit back and think about it, do we have more questions about this year's defense than we did heading into last year? And quite frankly, I think the answer is no. I think I'm a little more sure about this group that they will figure it out. The sacks, again, hot take. Yeah, you're probably not going to have 2 first-rounders rushing this year. But everything else, I think, is coming along well. They probably need to go to the portal for some depth at least one of those position groups. I would lean linebacker right now on defense, but other than that, things are progressing well, and I think a lot of people are very excited about the work that's being done in spring football.
Yeah, Chris, Cam Good is a guy who's going to visit coming up here. UCF defensive tackle transfer kid that forced 4 fumbles last year. And had like 7.5 tackles for loss 2 years ago in 10 games. So kid can play. Also visiting Syracuse as well.
Yeah, and they like him, and they wouldn't be looking at him if they didn't. And I think they're going to get him, frankly. And I think he'll be the guy in the middle. So they've been looking at a few guys, also on the edge. So we'll see if that materializes as well. But Cam Good he's got quick feet. If you watch his high school film, man, he's got that get off. Like he's not Mo Hurst, but he's got the Mo Hurst type get off the feet, the first move. Right, boom, the ball snapped, and you're getting around a guy. And I like that about him. So he's 315 pounds, not very tall, but they've got to generate some pass rush.
May have lost him. He's frozen for you too, right, Anthony?
Yeah, I see it.
They got to generate some pass rush. I'm with him. I don't know if he can hear us.
Just stop the show right there. Pass rush. Done.
That's right. Cam Good, pretty good. I wanted to add that in as well.
Well, since Chris is frozen here, we still have our show to do / wrap up. I mean, where do you want to take this next? I know you were kind of more on the Minter end of things, Clayton. So what were your takeaways from some of the things that he discussed?
Well, I was kind of going to piggyback off of what you were saying with how they're building the defense. Yeah, it's year 2, and he actually used that terminology as well. It's year 2 of the defensive system, but last year they built it around the edge guys in terms of, the blitzes they brought and maybe not blitzing as much as maybe they will this year. And, even when you look at like what coverages they were in, and now they're going to have to adjust that with, what they have, as Chris is now officially gone, but we appreciate him from joining up, obviously, from San Antonio, and we'll have a ton of coverage from the game tonight. But yeah, just the fact that the spring game, I think, is going to tell us a decent amount about, it's going to be similar, but we're going to notice some things, I think, as well. And I know they're not going to show a lot, especially when you talk about blitzes and some of the exotic stuff they're going to do. But we're going to see a little bit more of how, everyone is so worried about the edge guys leaving, but you don't always build a defense around edge guys. I think it's one of the better ways in college because you want to be able to rush the passer with 4 so you can sit back especially with the way the game is evolving with a lot of pass-heavy stuff. But you can do it in other ways as well. Secondary, as you mentioned, being better than they expected, I think is going to be a big way to do that. But anything else from you?
No, I mean, like I said, I would agree with all that. Ideally, getting to they're going to have to get to the quarterback, and you have to generate quarterback pressures, because I think regardless of whether it was Don Brown, Mike McDonald, this defense and the way that this roster is built, like if they don't get there, that's a problem for any team that doesn't get to the quarterback, especially when you have, I know the Big Ten isn't exactly known for being pass happy, but we all know what the final exam is at the end of the year, right? So everything's about giving yourselves a shot to prepare for that game the last Saturday in November. And and Clinkscale talked about that too, where he basically said, like, we know, yeah, we beat them last year, but we did a good job keeping those guys in front of us, but we still gave up a ton of passing yards. So I think for them, the focus is, now that they're in year 2 of this defense, guys are comfortable with the system. You can just go out and make plays because it's muscle memory. I think you'll probably see them flash more of that in the spring game and early on in the season. So that's where I see things at with the defense and really just spring football in general, since we really only talked to the defensive coaches this week.
Yeah. I love when Klink was talking about that. He's never satisfied about anything. As you said, he kind of got on DJ Turner. He quote unquote addressed it, how he thought maybe DJ was getting a little bit complacent in the first few practices. He wants more takeaways. He said that like every time we get him and someone says, what are you working on the most? He's like, I want more takeaways. I want more takeaways. He looks for it heavily in the recruiting process, which I love as well, because he said, we're asking these guys to do a million different things. They have to think more than they've ever thought on a football field before, but we still want them to have that instinct to go and get the ball. So I love to hear that. And yeah, interesting about how he's already thinking about Ohio State. We let up too many yards. When in reality, I loved what they did in that game, especially tightening up with 2 or 3 red zone stops. But, he doesn't even want them to get down there. And I think that's a good attitude to have. Improve off of what you did, not only throughout the season, but against Ohio State too. And they'll give you a better shot in every game, including that last one down in Columbus. But yeah, lots going on here at thewolverine.com with basketball in the Sweet 16. Spring football ramping up ahead of the spring game on April 2nd, only next weekend. And as Chris said, hopefully we are covering both the Final Four and the spring game that day. I would love to be jam-packed, full of stuff on that day, of course. Thank you to Manscaped, our sponsor. Once again, the promo code is 20GOBLUE, 20GOBLUE for 20% off and free shipping. And enjoy the game tonight, everybody.